that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
Moss went straight through, Andrews there!
He's just forever looking for an opportunity.
Exhilarating football!
That's a good sign of a good team.
Accelerates and punches through them!
And he's only going to get better.
And the hammer stands them up! And Queensland going to do it again!
Well, thanks for joining us this week on Queenslander, here with Darren Lockyer. No Wally Lewis today, Lockyer. He's down in Canberra again. He spends half his time in Canberra. He's addressing Parliament with the CTE, concussion, probable CTE rather is the exact terminology. How good's that's been taken seriously?
Yeah, look, I think it's all about awareness and, while it can't be diagnosed while you're living, there can be symptoms that show that you do have potential CTE. And, Wal's been open-minded about it and he's been, happy to express his thoughts and, he's I guess how it's impacting his life. And I think, again, it's just raising, when you see someone like Wally Lewis, who's arguably the best rugby league player ever in history, to see him talk openly about it, I think it just goes to show the attitude, how it's changed towards particularly concussion and how we prevent it or how we manage it best we can, given it's a contact sport.
Yeah, he's certainly creating a great legacy in that department. Arguably could be more important than what he did on the rugby league field once we look back at it in maybe 20, 30 years' time. But here in Queensland this week, on field, big talking point, no Kalyn Ponga for a huge part of the season for the Knights and for the Maroons, completely out of origin.
Yeah, well, we talked about how a week can be a long time in rugby league, and only last week we're talking about Reece and Kalyn being in the team together, but obviously Kalyn succumbed to a foot injury. He tried to tough it out the other day, so he showed plenty of toughness, but that's a big out for the Knights. But it's probably for Billy, I guess there's been quite a few injuries, and I guess he's got his finger crossed there's not too many more.
Yeah. And he went into that game under an injury cloud, Kalyn Ponga. I think it was the hip pointer, and then he did his foot. Did they make a mistake maybe in playing him?
Hip pointers are really painful. I remember playing with a couple of them, and they're just the sort of injury that you can't needle it to get the pain away. It just affects the way you run. And look, in hindsight, maybe it was the wrong thing to play, but it's done now. He's got a foot injury and he needs to get into his recovery. But hip pointers, they're not an easy, and I think they're one injury that really affects your confidence because you're not moving as well as you can, and I think it impacts how you approach everything, whether you're going in for a tackle or whether you're taking the ball. You're doubting yourself because you're not 100%.
Yeah, and there was that moment fifth tackle option, they passed him the ball and he kind of was unprepared to kick and he couldn't get to the ball in time, which really highlighted that. But given his importance to the Knights, do you think that could cost them a final spot?
Yeah, look, I think I remember last year the Knights, everyone wrote them off and then they went on that 10-game winning streak. So, I think what will happen now is people will say, well, the Knights' season's done, given Kalyn's not there, but it could be the I guess the moment that spurs the Knights on to start proving people wrong. So sometimes when you lose a big player like that, it can actually go the other way for you and really motivate the rest of the team to compensate for his loss.
And Billy Slater's been very good at getting past players, even current players who are injured into Origin camp. Do you think he'll invite Kalyn around some stage, games 1 to 3 there, just to be around the group?
Yeah, look, I think it's, at some point, you have to rely on more than the 17 you pick. You've got to build a nucleus of players, and that's not just 17. It's it's a group, and I think Kalyn's been there. Billy regards him really highly, and I think if Kalyn's willing to come into camp and give advice to someone like Reece, I think that can only be a benefit.
And moving up north now to the Cowboys, something I don't really want to talk about. They're flogging from the Sharks. I actually called the Queensland Cup game, Brisbane Tigers, on Sunday and then drove home, came in the door, was talking to my missus. She goes, "Why are you so angry?" And then I turned on the TV and the scoreline was 30-0 against the Cowboys. I said, "That's why I'm so angry." But how concerning is that?
Yeah, well, we've been saying over the last sort of 6 weeks, when they're on, the Cowboys, they're as good as any team in the competitions, particularly their attack, but they just have these lapses. And look, the Sharks were very good on the weekend. They completed at 90%. You're playing at Shark Park on a Sunday afternoon. It's a pretty daunting place to play, and you need to get away to a good start. And they didn't. And I just, I don't know. I feel they're just lacking. They're lacking an 80-minute performance. We've already said that, but they're almost lacking a bit of aggression. I feel like they're doing their job, but they're not doing it with purpose, and I think that's telling, particularly when you're up against a good team. And the Sharks just ran right.
They're missing a forward, I just think, at the moment. Like, Cohen Hess is out injured throughout the season. Like, it highlights his value to the team. They've got a couple of other forwards. Lukey's out. He's probably about 2 weeks away. So, and Jason Taumalolo, it's an interesting situation. His agent was actually on the radio today saying he doesn't have a knee injury, contradicting Todd Payton, who says he has a degenerative knee problem. So I think how that plays out is very important to how the season progresses for the Cowboys.
Yeah, well, I just don't think at the moment there's people that are capable. The physicality is not there at the moment. You know, whether it's Lukey to come back, I just feel like some of the older guys just probably need to take it a bit more personal. And when they're out there in the field, they need to show some intensity with their physicality, and particularly it starts with the front row and it works its way back down the scrum from there.
Is it easy enough to fix those defensive deficiencies mid-season?
Look, I think from a defensive system, a lot of it comes down to attitude, and a lot of it comes down to if you're getting really good line speed and you're taking time and space away from the opposition, it's a lot easier to make decisions. So, like I said, if you get that intensity about getting off the line with some purpose and wanting to be physical, you'll bring the rest of the team up with you, and that'll make the defensive workload for the edges and the outside players a lot easier. But I just feel like there's not enough intensity in that getting off the line aspect, and that's impacting their defensive systems.
And it doesn't get any easier Saturday night at home for the Cowboys, but against the Penrith Panthers. So that'll be Felty's 200th game. So
yeah, it's a big night. And I think, a lot of people will be into the Cowboys this week, including yourself.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will be sort of, kicking them down while it hurts, and they're up against the best team, arguably the best team in the competition. So, and Kyle Felt's 200th, there's plenty of motivation, and I reckon they'll play well.
And after they play the Panthers, the next week at home for the Cowboys, they take on the Dolphins. How mature performance was that for the Dolphins in that second half? It's almost a coming-of-age moment for that club, what they did against the Eels in Darwin.
Yeah, I think it was also, we know Wayne's exiting the club this year and Christian Wolf took over, so that was a positive moment for not just the coach that stood in for Wayne on the weekend, but also the club moving forward. But the one thing about Wayne's teams is that, if you're going to beat them, you have to go, they're not going to beat themselves. And that's why last year they surprised a lot of people by the way they just hung in with a lot of their games. Obviously they got tired and fatigued at the back end of the year and had a few injuries, and they sort of, they lost a bit of momentum. But this year there was a couple of performances, particularly round one, which was poor. But other than that, they've been in the contest, and they were very impressive the other night. They literally broke the Eels down and waited for their moment to pounce, and there was that 10-minute period after half-time that they just went bang, 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 game over. So it was a really good performance from them.
Yeah, I think it was 8 tries in 25 minutes. I haven't seen anything like that at NRL level.
And a long-distance one as well.
Yeah, amazing tries. The catalyst for a lot of that is Katoa, the young half. What are you liking about him?
Well, as I've said before, while he's still learning the trade of game management, he's still been able to be the player he can be, and that's a bit unpredictable at times. And I think that's, you can go out and manage a game, and that's obviously really important for the rest of the team, but you still got to have the ability yourself to, be, to sort of catch the defensive teams off guard, and that's just playing what's in front of you. And I think he's starting to mix his game up really well. While he's got his job, which the coach gives him, and he knows what he has to do, but he's starting to, get the confidence to go away from that from time to time, and that's having a positive impact on the team.
How weird would it have been for the players not having Wayne there at halftime?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a testament to how Christian handled it, and it's not like he hasn't been a head coach himself before. He's done it many times, but still big shoes to fill. And it was obviously a really good night, and I think the players would have wanted to, repay, their coach for being there, and he would have been a bit nervous, but they obviously stood up for him, and it was, really good for him.
I'm loving Maxi Plath as well.
Yeah.
How good's he?
Well, he's a chip off the old block. The thing about John when he played, he was just a competitor. You could put him at fullback, you could put him in the front row, and he'd do a job for you, and he'd do it well because he just competes, and that's what Max is. And I think he got a great reward with a couple of tries the other night for just the effort that he's putting in for his team.
And down on the Gold Coast, it was a point-scoring shootout between Manly and the Titans. Manly emerged victorious there, 34-30. Did that game say more about the Titans or the Sea Eagles?
Yeah, I still think the Sea Eagles haven't, really, what would I say?
Hit their straps, maybe?
Yeah, or just they haven't made a statement, the Manly yet. And so, obviously, playing... after the Titans got beaten in Golden Point, playing them on the coast on the weekend wouldn't have been an easy game, but I feel like Manly still haven't made a statement to the competition yet. Now, for the Titans, it must be so frustrating. They're putting in a lot of effort. They're executing better with their attack and their defence, but the last 2 weeks have just come up agonisingly short. So I'm sure that'd be frustrating, but I feel that they are on the verge of breaking through. They got confidence out of the Canberra game because of their performance, and I don't think they would have lost too much confidence from the Manly game. They just know that they need to put 80 minutes together and they'll get a result.
Is their defence still too leaky, though? Like, they conceded 34 points in 55 minutes. I know they held Manly scoreless for the last 25, but 6 tries in 55 minutes, way too many?
Yeah, and possibly there's a bit of player movement, in that front line that sort of makes it a bit harder to get those combinations right. But I feel like there's a bit more resilience there than there was, 3-4 weeks ago, which is good. The confidence, I think, has come back to them. But now it's about playing smarter and being able to break a team down and then obviously defending well against them and then go on with it. So that's their next step, and I feel like it's coming. And
they actually play on Anzac Day this week. Over in New Zealand, the Warriors host that. Traditionally, the Warriors play the Melbourne Storm. So, good luck, Anzac Day.
I always remember the drums beating over there. So it's a pretty hostile environment. But, I guess, every week's hard in the NRL. And so for the Titans, it's just they just got to keep their head down, obviously get their defensive systems, get that right. And I think they give themselves, a good chance because there's plenty of points in them.
And some big name inclusions for the Broncos for Saturday night's clash against the West Tigers. Adam Reynolds back, Payne Haas, Brendan Piakura, Dean Mariner as well, likely 4 big inclusions. How pleased will Kevy be knowing that they've been able to sneak back up into the top 8 without those gun players?
Yeah, well, they were dominant the other night.
Yeah.
It looked like a team that had Payne Haas, Adam Reynolds, Dean Mariner, who's the other one?
Brendan Piakura,
it looks like it, so that was really a confidence boost for those players that are filling in for those players that are coming back, but obviously for the team in general, and obviously Kevy, a real confidence boost to be able to, because Canberra have been playing some good football.
Yeah, they were third.
And they put it this way, it looked like they were on the Broncos were third and the Raiders were, I think they were about 10th.
Outside the 8.
So, it was a dominant performance, and they'll get a lot of confidence out of that. They got the Tigers in Sydney,
down in Campbelltown, I think that game is.
So, again, I think at home we've been playing okay. Away it's been a little bit patchy, so they've probably a bit of a challenge and a bit of a target for them to go down there and really get an 80-minute performance.
And one of the highlights for mine was seeing Cam Smith, the golfer in the sheds. Big Broncos fans. He's played a bit of golf with Adam Reynolds and Corey Oates. He'll be back in town competing at his Live Golf event in Adelaide this week. And hopefully common sense prevails and we select him for the Olympics in Paris. But you were playing for the Broncos in the halcyon days. Lockie, were there any celebrities or sportsmen you'd often see in the sheds or at training?
Yeah, I saw that footage with Cam, and he wouldn't probably see that too often in the golf circuit.
Yeah.
Maybe they do, we just don't see it. But the boys singing the team song and beers getting thrown up everywhere, and Cam's just sitting there living a dream. So it was good to see him in there. It was good to see him participate at the end there with the boys. Yeah, we obviously, you know, in Australia, you know, kids that have grown up in Queensland, New South Wales have a bit of you know, they follow their rugby league. So we used to have a lot of cricketers that would come over. We even had one come and train with us and wanted to play for us for a while. That was Andrew Simons, who played rugby league growing up. Obviously, a wonderful talent. Was a great all-rounder playing for Australia in cricket, but he got a bit bored there for a while and wanted to come and play for us. But look, if it wasn't him on the training field, he was quite often in the dressing room after the game because Roy did enjoy a 4x goal, and he used to come in the dressing rooms after the games and give us a bit of feedback about the way we played. So it was. It was always good to see him, and obviously, you know, sad that he's not around anymore, but he loved his rugby league. And the other one, not necessarily in the dressing room after a game, but I do remember it vividly now because he did something that not too many people should and shouldn't do, and that was Steve Irwin. He came to training one day, and you know, Steve being who he is, he just wanted to. He manhandled Crocs, but he wanted to manhandle Shane Webcke, which that's not a good idea. And so Steve said, "Righto, Shane, you run at me, and I'll see if I can do the job." But you know, I'm pretty sure Steve came away pretty sore after that. But again, sadly, he's not with us anymore. But it was a pretty significant moment because we had a lot of people come to training that day because Steve was coming, and Webby's just one of those guys. He doesn't really understand how to play in the moment. He's just a mere
100 miles
an hour. So he just saw this guy that wanted to tackle him and thought, he's fair game.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and watch that vision there with Webcke and Lockyer and the boys and the Crocodile Hunter. But just going back to the modern day Broncos, about the ins and outs with all the injuries, managing the roster. What about back in your day? Can you think back of a year while we're reminiscing of, like, you had a sustained run of injuries, but you managed to keep that winning run alive?
Well, it's a good sign of the depth of the club, and I think given the injuries and over the last, you know, couple of years, just being able to bring some players through the system, but it's that, you know, you hear them say it a fair bit at the Bronx, and other clubs say it too, that next up mentality, and you know, I think just those. I think that just reflects of the system. It reflects on the coaching. That, you know, if one of your key players is out, we can just bring in a player. They fall into the system. They understand the processes and they just execute it. And I think that's what sets the good clubs apart from the clubs down the bottom. And obviously the Panthers are very good at it. Well, look, you know, for us, you know, that was one of Wayne's greatest strengths was, you know, being able to get players that come, you know, from the fringes to be able to come in and perform. And the mid-90s were obviously very successful for us. The late 90s were very successful for us. We had a great 1 to 13, but whenever we had injuries, we had, you know, guys that could step in and do the job.
And just on the injuries, finally, it means the comeback means 4 players have to make way out of the side. So, like, who's impressed you for those guys that have filled in? Like, you've had the likes of, Tristan Saylor, Oatesy's come back on the wing, hasn't missed a beat there. Jaden Hunt's been good as well.
Oh, they've all been good. I think Jaden Hunt has been, you know, like he hasn't been scoring like, you know.
He should have scored a try the other night.
Yeah, it's not like he's being the game breaker out there, but he's just really he's like a tradesman with his
Capewell, essentially that Capewell role. Yeah,
just gets through what he needs to do defensively. Does a lot of work off the ball. does what he needs to do in attack, and he's minimised minimal errors, so he's been really good. I thought maybe coming into the team, given Brendan's not there, he might have been a bit overawed, but he's been fantastic. Tristan obviously got an opportunity. He forced his way into the 17. It'd be interesting to see what happens now that Dean's back. Corey will probably have to make way for that, but does Corey go back to the bench? So there's all these sort of, this week's probably the most interesting for the Broncos team selection for a while.
And Xavier Willison as well. I really liked him.
Well, I'd probably say he's the guy that's I think we've always known the talent he is, but I just think in the last couple of weeks he's really found his. You could tell he feels at home, and he's willing to sort of, I reckon he's willing to sort of get out there and make a difference and make an impact, and that's what he's done the last couple of weeks. So he's been fantastic. And
Carrigan's almost made the other forwards lift. It was fascinating to think when Payne Haas was out of like, oh, they're really going to go backwards, but it's almost made Paddy a better player.
Yeah, well, I think Paddy knew. With no pain, a lot of the responsibility would fall back on him, and he stood up. He's a great leader, Paddy. Great talker, great communicator. He knew there was a challenge in front of him, and they've come through it really well. I guess the risk now, and this is what they need to address, is we bring back Adam, we bring back Payne, we bring back Dean, we bring back Brendan. That doesn't mean everyone else just can take their foot off the pedal and just drop their intensity by 1 or 2%. Because if everyone does that, just thinking you've got all these key players coming back, it can have an impact.
Yep, big test for the Broncos Saturday night against the resurgent Benji Marshall's boys down there in Sydney against the Tigers. But big weekend of footy here on Nine's Widewater Sports. All starts on Anzac Day, the traditional clash you'll see live and free on Nine here between the Dragons and the Roosters.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie and the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.